All right, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session of Performance Analytics Office Hours. Welcome if you are a new attendee or first timer here, and welcome back to those of you who have joined us in the past. My name is Tom Pasek. I'm a product marketing manager here at ServiceNow. I'm going to take just a couple minutes to run through some logistics, make sure everybody understands kind of what we're doing with office hours and what to expect, and then we'll jump into today's session. So just keep in mind that these sessions are ultimately for you. We bring our inbound and outbound product managers onto these calls, so you can hear best practices directly from them. You get the ability to ask them questions and get their take on all things performance analytics. As far as the format, we typically kick off with a quick presentation from our teams, and then we'll transition into an open Q&A session. So feel free to ask your questions, get them answered, or just listen in if you'd prefer. Everyone does have the ability to go off mute and ask questions, but we're going to ask if you're not currently speaking, please go ahead and make sure that you're muted so you don't interrupt the presenters. You also have the ability to use the text chat in Zoom if you'd prefer. Just a quick reminder, make sure you direct the message to everyone instead of a specific presenter. We've got a few folks monitoring the chat. That way they can make sure that they answer those questions for you. There may be cases where it seems like we're getting into some specifics on your own instance. Please don't take it the wrong way. We might just ask you to follow up offline or raise an incident on Hi. We get quite a few questions in these sessions, and we just want to make sure that we get to as many as possible. The meetings are being recorded. You should see a little recording indicator in the upper corner of the Zoom window. If you're not comfortable with that, or your organization is not comfortable with that, please go ahead and disconnect now. And you can always catch recordings of previous office hours sessions at this bit.ly URL. It is case sensitive, so that's PA office hours with no spaces, no capitalization in there. So there's an archive of everything that we've done in the past. This session will go up there shortly later today or early tomorrow. And then last thing for me, I know this feels like it's very far away, but in May, we're going to have our Knowledge 2020 conference in Orlando. And what I wanted to mention on today's call was that if you have a great performance analytics story within your organization that you'd love to share with folks at Knowledge, please get in touch with me. My email address is there. I know my last name is horrendous to try and spell. You can find this in the recording if you need to reference it, but go ahead and shoot me an email and I can connect you with the right folks. We'll have a formal call for speakers website that opens in the near future here. But if you want to bat around some ideas or think you might have a topic that you want to cover at this year's Knowledge, please let me know. We'd love to hear it from you. For the folks on this call, it can be performance analytics related. Also interested if you're doing anything with our machine learning capabilities from agent and predictive intelligence or virtual agents. Would love to hear those as well. So with that, we're going to transition over to Patty, who's going to take us through a couple of content packs today. And then I think we'll move over to Adam's going to do a demo of how to add performance analytics widgets to your service portal. So with that, Patty, I'm going to stop sharing and let you start.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, just one sec. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
We can.
Okay, cool. there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go over two of our content packs. I have it labeled as human for our HR product, but these are actually not just limited to HR. They can be used across the platform, but they were built from our dev resources in our HR department. So the first one I'm going to go through is our content analytics pack. And this one's really focused on being able to measure and kind of give you an understanding of the effectiveness of the content that you put out there on either your employee service center or your service portal. It's really helping you helping you to understand if the content that you're putting out there is really compelling and useful to your users. And so the thing we did launch this content pack in Madrid, but there is some new functionality as of New York, and that new functionality is the Google Analytics integration that was added. So this allows you to see the existing dashboard with more enhanced metrics that are coming from Google Analytics, such as bounce rate, unique users, and new users, and I'll go through that in more detail. The plugin that you would need in order to get access to this dashboard is called the Performance Analytics Content Pack for Content Analytics. And the dependencies for the dependency plugins in order to use that dashboard will be the Content Analytics, which is a standalone. There's no licensing required for that plugin. It's the plugin that will track your analytics. And then in terms of where your content's being recited, the plugins that you would need to also enable would be either the content automation and the content delivery, and then if you're wanting to measure the content in your employee service center, then you would need to enable that one as well. In terms of licensing, like I mentioned, the content analytics is free, so you don't have any licensing required in order to use that. But you will need to have PA, as most of you do on this call, in order to leverage the dashboard. And then the roles that you would need in order to access the dashboard are the following. There's an analytics admin, which allows you to be able to edit the dashboard, and then analytics reader in order to be able to just view the data on the dashboard. So then here's an overview of the dashboard. We have an overview page which has a breakdown filter on the top, allowing you to be able to filter specifically by the specific content that we're calling it the profile. And we have the unique users, which is essentially being measured by cookies, the cookies that are assigned to be able to classify a unique ID to determine, like, you could be able to distinguish if the user is returning to view that content, they came back to see it again, or whether they're a new user. And this really helps with the adoption of the content that you're putting out there, enabling you to know if, like, the new content that you put out there is really being viewed by new users or just the same ones. And then we have some engagement metrics, which would be looking at our page views and our sessions to know how often, like in terms of how well engaged users are with the content that you're putting out there. Like how long are they taking to look at each individual page, which would give you your average time to page. And then the session duration to know, like, in terms of the interactions that they're making, like whether they're downloading something or they're viewing and browsing, how long is that duration each time that they go to either your portal or to a specific page. The bounce rate is also coming from Google Analytics, and that really is a good quality of to measure the content that you have out there. So the bounce rate, what it does is that when a user comes to, let's say, your page or to your service portal, if they didn't do any type of engagement, they just got there, they came to the page and then they realized that that wasn't the information that they were getting to, that so they leave right away, that would be considered a bounce. And so typically across the industry, a bounce rate of about in the 30 to 40% would be a typical bounce rate, but of course that depends on the specific content that you have out there. If you start to see an increase of that bounce rate, then you definitely want to be able to drill down and look into that specific content and see maybe that's not necessarily useful for your users, or there's to understand why is it that they're not staying on that page to engage with it. And then the last two widgets that we have on the bottom are looking at our visits by the browser and by device. So this will give us an understanding as well in terms of how our users our employees are being engaged with the content, like specifically what browser are they using, and then what device are they using in order to engage with that content. Majority of these indicators that we have within the content do have breakdowns. So for our bounce rate, our unique users, and our new users, as well as our sessions, like our average session duration, you can filter those by the profile. Our average time per page you can filter that by the profile and specifically by the page. And then our visits, as we saw on the other screen, we can filter it by the specific profile, like in terms of the content, and by the device type. The last tab we have is to really get an understanding of what are those top pages that are popular. So we can see the top 5 pages that are most viewed and have the most visits in the last 3 days, as well then what would that be in the last 3 weeks. And so that kind of gives us a critical in terms of when we first throw out that content out there to see which ones are really resonating with the users. Our next content pack is focused more on our campaign analytics. And so this is also being able to really measure the effectiveness of each campaign that we launch. So it gives us being able to measure that traffic for the particular campaigns, more specifically really like the views. And as well in New York, what we added, so this content pack was also released in Madrid, but we enhanced it in New York by adding another visualization, another metric to add, which is looking at the to-do tasks. So you can have a number of tasks per campaign, and you would want to measure that over time in terms of like how does that state look like. So how many are we completing and how many we still have in our backlog to complete. And for the plugin that would need to be enabled for this content pack is called Performance Analytics Content Pack Content Automation. As well, you would need to enable the content automation plugin and the content analytics. The roles that are needed in order to access the dashboard is a campaign admin if you're wanting to edit the dashboard, and the campaign manager to just view the analytics on that dashboard. So for this dashboard, you're able to filter by the specific campaign. The 3 widgets on the top are giving you detailed information about the specific campaign. For in this example, it's the open enrollment. It has a description of that campaign and who the audience is. So in this case, this is about targeting employees whose name starts with the letter A. It gives you, I'm going to go to the next slide so it's a little bit easier to read. It gives you how long the campaign has been running, so how many days the campaign has been running for, and then 3 metrics that will measure the total engagement, so number of items that were clicked, and the number of items that were viewed. You can filter all the widgets by the name of the campaign as well as the date. So if you're only wanting to look at this week versus this month or this quarter, depending how long your campaign is running for. And then in terms of some of the trending metrics that we have is we're looking at the number of event activity over time. And then we're slicing those events over time by the different content type, the action, and then also looking at the action activity in terms of like what percentage is more in the pie chart, what percentage is more dominant. Then we're also looking at the top content that was viewed in terms of the events within your campaign and what were the top notifications. In the to-dos, this is the tasks that are being trended over time, and here we are leveraging PA. In the other visualizations, we were using reporting so that we could be able to filter by the different date, like whether it's this week or this quarter. In the to-dos, we're leveraging PA so that we can really understand that snapshot over time in terms of how many tasks we still have open and how many have we closed over time. And that's it for our presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
So just a reminder, feel free to go off mute if you want to ask your questions or go ahead and type them into the text chat. And Patty, we did have one in the text here. Linda was asking if you can just kind of quickly explain what's meant by content when you're looking at like the content analytics.
Yeah, so what I mean by content, it can be anything related to, when we think about like HR, it can be information regarding like say when it comes to benefits like open enrollment or any type of information that you're wanting to provide to your employees from like a page it could be a page on your service portal, or it could be even like any type of useful information, like whether it could even be like a blog or something like that, then you would want to track if people are actually viewing that information. They're going to that site. Does that answer?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute. I think so. I'm just trying to, in my head, think of what's different between tracking of like knowledge articles or how much you had mentioned, I think, service catalog before, like the different service catalog forms or pages that are used. And so like what
well, you can also track it like via email, like getting those views, or it could be individual content that's specifically on your employee service center, for example.
Okay.
Yeah.
So would this be adding like a flag so that you could say that this is content you want to track? Or is it just like...
Yeah, you would need to, well, you need to set up the tracking. If you're wanting these, like, for example, on the Google Analytics part, you would need to set up your Google Analytics in order to get some of these metrics. And it doesn't have to be a licensed Google Analytics. It can be the free Google Analytics version. But you would need to set up the tracking. And we do have documentation within our HR. Believe it's within the, it's all within the HR service delivery documentation. There's one specifically for the content analytics, how to set up the Google configuration or even just the standard content analytics tracking.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions for Patty?
I do see one, just to clarify, that came up about, is this specific to HR or all the ServiceNow platform? And you want to reiterate that, Patty?
Yeah, you can use this across all ServiceNow platform. The use case in terms of like our HR team was the one that actually developed this. So a lot of the examples that we have are more related to HR, and you can do, for example, like they have the plugin if you want to measure this with your employee service center, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be just with HR. It could be on the platform as well.
And it looks like there's one more from Jessica. Does Google Analytics gather more information than the reports from ServiceNow?
I think I need more clarification on like more.
There is more detail.
What do you mean by more?
There is. I mean, it's gathering the browser and demographic information.
Yeah, some of the breakdowns that like it's gathering is like the browser, the device type, like the metrics of the bounce rate. That's something that we're not able to do without Google Analytics. And then in terms of, there's a question on demoing the setup, that it's a little bit more involved, that I don't think we would be able to do right now. Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, Patty, and presenting that information. So I think at this point,
no
Adam, we'll switch over to you and we can take a look at PA widgets on the service portal.
Okay. Hopefully you're seeing my slide deck.
We are. It seems a bit small, like it's not filling the screen.
Sorry. My screen's big. Well, let's go through this. There's not a lot of detail in here, but I just want to make sure that we talk about a few of the issues to go over how you add performance analytics on your service portal. It's a question we get regularly. The good thing is it's actually pretty easy. So let's walk through a couple of things that you want to be aware of, and we'll do a demo. So we're going to talk about the basics about how PA and the service portal work together, some of the words you need to know. We're going to walk through the steps of setting it up, and then we'll do a quick demo of actually adding a performance analytics widget to a service portal. So getting started with the basics. The first thing that's really important, it's confusing no matter what you do, but this is one of the places where the widget word gets reused. So in our world for performance analytics and reporting, we have 3 widgets that we deal with in the platform. We have performance analytics widgets, we have service portal widgets, and we have system UI widgets. Hopefully all of us on the call have seen these 3 types of widgets. And this is a case where we're going to use a widget with a widget. And so I'll try to be as clear as I can about which widget we're talking about. To explain the difference, if you haven't seen them all, so a performance analytics widget, this one I do hope we're all familiar with, is what we put on a dashboard. We configure an indicator and a visualization, and we get a PA widget. So here I have single score performance analytics widgets. The second one is a service portal widget. So that's what we're going to deal with today and how these work together. A service portal widget is on my service portal an entity. So I have the quick links is a widget, important links is a widget, video carousel is a widget. We're going to create a performance analytics widget. And the third type of widget I want to bring up because it's important for us is on a dashboard. When I click on the plus sign and get switched into edit mode, these are all widgets too. Favorites is a widget, reports is a widget, performance analytics is a widget, interactive filters is a widget. And these are something we can customize as well at the system level. They don't have to do with service portal, but that is another type of a very important widget for us to be aware of. And I want to start, as we're talking about this, now that we are have talked about which widgets are which, when do I want to use the service portal? So the service portal or the trade-off with it, you want to use your service portal when you need to have a really highly customized experience. So we see the service portal getting used with PA. If my CIO wants a dashboard, if my CEO needs a dashboard, that's C-suite, I might do that because they're not happy with the standard graphics that I have. So I'll use the service. I'll use a service portal. When we're talking about it, what we're going to go through today is using the service portal performance analytics widget. This is awesome because it uses standard performance analytics widgets. It's very easy to configure. We're going to do it live in a demo in a couple minutes. Fully supported, and there is no code at all. I also have the option in the service portal of creating a custom service portal widget, highly customized. I can have it do basically anything I want to. I use the performance analytics API. The downside to this is that it's limited. There's limited support because you're writing some of this code, and it does require knowledge of JavaScript, CSS, and HTML. We're not going to go through the custom service portal widget. That, if you need to have another higher level of customization, is an option that you have. Today, we're going to go through the left-hand side, the service portal performance analytics widget, and using standard performance analytics widgets with that. All right, so let's walk through what do we need to do. So the first thing is you have to activate the plugin. The plugin is separate. So performance analytics, there's a plugin for connecting service portal and performance analytics. That is the performance analytics and reporting service portal widgets. This will give you the ability to add performance analytics to your service portal. So make sure you have this plugin installed, and an admin will need to do that. The second is I need a performance analytics widget. In a dashboard, I can add the widget and then go configure it. In this case, we need to make sure the widget is ready to go. I can use the same widget on a dashboard or a service portal, but do make sure that the widget itself is there, that the performance analytics widget is pre-configured before we go to try to add it to the service portal. The second thing is the next thing is I'm going to go to a page. I'm going to go to a page in the service portal to configure it. So I'm going to go to pages, click on the page. I'm then going to open the designer, add a container for the widget, And then the most important thing, the key thing that you need to take away is once I have the plugin installed, if I go to widgets, I can type in performance analytics and there is a single performance analytics widget. That is what I'm going to add to my service portal. Once I'm there, once that's been added, I can then select which performance analytics widget I want to add, that instance of the service portal widget for performance analytics. And then I press save, and I have now added my service portal widget to, or I've added my performance analytics widget to the service portal. And so now we're going to do a demo. This will be a little bit bigger because I'm not going to be full screen. Okay, is everybody seeing Chrome now?
Yes.
Tom's not yelling at me, so yes, great. Okay, so I'm going to add a performance analytics widget to one of my pages in my service portal. So I'm going to go to the leaderboard in the community service portal. And here I have a custom widget from that's coming out of box. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my performance analytics widgets. So I'm at performance analytics widgets, and I'm going to create a new widget. And my indicator, I'm going to do community number of new content contributions. I have everything I can do on a dashboard in a normal widget I can do here. I'm going to do a time series line chart. I think that's fine. And that's it. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a label, new content, and save it. And now what I'm doing is I'm going to the service portal pages. So I'm in my service portal and I go to pages. I'm going to the community leaderboard. That's the page that we were looking at. You can find this in other ways, but I know that that happens to be the name, is that the community leaderboard is actually right here in the URL. And on the community leaderboard, I'm going to open in Designer. I like nice WYSIWYG things that are drag and drop. And here's my current page. All I have is a leaderboard. What I'm going to do next is bring over a full width layout. I'm going to go over to widgets, performance analytics. Again, there's not one for each of my PA widgets. There's just the performance analytics widget that I'm looking for. I'm going to drag that over to my layout container. And then I'm going to edit this, and it's going to give me the option of which PA widget do I want. And we call this office hours example, I hope. Yep. And I'm going to click save. Now I see my layout here. I see the widget right here. I'm going to go to my leaderboard, refresh my service portal view of the world. And there's my PA widget. So this allows me to take, with no code, take a performance analytics indicator, create a widget, and put that on my service portal. Very simple, very quick, very easy to do. All right, that is the end of the demo. And so now we'll open it up for questions about this.
We got a couple in the chat. If you can do the same to the knowledge portal.
Any service portal you can add this into. I picked the community one, but if we go into portals, anything you have here. So if I went to the KB portal, you would be able to do the same thing. I'd have to switch scopes to do this. But you still have, there's still pages. You can add anything you want to, anywhere you want to. And the other thing I'll note is that when I come in here, I am able, the click-through is the same. It takes me to the analytics hub. So you do want to be aware of that. If you don't have, if the viewer doesn't have PA viewer, they'll get that they're not allowed to do that, just like you would on a dashboard. But you're able to do everything you would otherwise. The drill through works the same. Okay. Knowledge portal. This is not a New York feature. This feature is in New York. I'm not aware when this actually came out. It's been in for several releases. Can you? The question is, can you put multiple widgets on the portal? Yeah, yes. So multiple. You can mix and match whatever you want. You can have multiple PA widgets. And I'll put this into it as well. As I said, a use case where I see this for PA is not necessarily general consumption. It was hard for me to think of a good place where I would want to put a PA widget on a public portal. The leaderboard might be okay. But I certainly do see it where we'll create a standalone portal just for the C-suite or for a specific meeting. There have been some great presentations at Knowledge on this, on what can happen. Because you can customize the other widgets, you can make a very effective presentation with a little bit of effort, although you will be using some JavaScript and some CSS, formatting some stuff. If you really need to polish the presentation, the service portal is a very good option to look at. And again, you don't have to reinvent everything, but you can just make sure that that polish is there to wow your users. I would not do it all the time because there is more work, but when your CIO calls, sometimes that's what you got to answer with. So there's a question about reports. Yes, you can add reports in here as well. Interactive filters, I believe, don't work in the service portal. Dynamic filters do, so that you can say, show me my, for reports, my things work, but the and if any of the developers want to correct me, but the interactive filters work in the dashboard framework, so you need to be they need to be on a dashboard, but you certainly can have a report that shows me my incidents, my people, where you have those dynamic filters, the is me, and make a very useful, very powerful, clean presentation for your users. It is not something, it's not my first choice. I want to use a dashboard most of the time, but again, sometimes that's beyond, what's being asked for is what we're going to need the service portal for. And I think I got the questions about this. Does anybody else see a question?
I think you hit the ones related to this already.
Okay. And we will post these slides out so that you can see this as well. One other note is that if you go search the docs for performance analytics widgets on Service Portal, you'll see a lot of this as well. So it is documented, but we wanted to go through as a walkthrough. I saw another question come in about interactive filters available on the portal. I don't know that that's on the roadmap. There's a lot of challenges with doing that. So I wouldn't count on that being there. It is something that you could, that I've certainly seen people build their own, because on the service portal, you can write your own JavaScript, your own, you can make it your own. I've seen people get similar functionality modifying things, but I believe just out of the box interactive filters, I'm not aware of them being planned to be put on the service portal. Okay, well, if that's all the questions on here, that's great. I'm glad the demo covered most of what you were asking about. And now we can open this up for any other questions, whether it's about the content, content analysis, content packs you saw, any other content packs, any performance analytics questions, any reporting questions. We are here to answer your questions.
Hey, Adam, I'm going to kick one off just because it was in the text chat early on, so we don't forget about it. Stephen was asking if we have anything as far as a guide for converting instances from home pages to dashboards outside of what we have on the docs site. So it's looking for kind of lessons learned or maybe some more practical examples.
I'm not aware of that, but that's on our list to help do. We certainly want to help you get off of home pages on dashboards for many reasons. And that one we will look at, see if we can produce that, as well as a couple other things. How do we help people get into Report Designer? Um, we're my team is working to focus on how to help you get rid of, not get rid of, but how to migrate to the more current features. But as of today, I'm not aware of anything specific that has those gotchas. And Stephen, if you want to ping me, because I know you have my email address, we can talk some more about it, about how to help you do that. But it is a good thing to be thinking about. How do you get your users off of homepages and onto dashboards? So there's a question about HiCharts. Is this something that would work for the service portal? HiCharts is on the instance, and that's what we use for reporting and PA visualizations. You could use it as well. In the service portal, if you wanted to create something custom, you could use HiCharts. You can also use anything else you want. HiCharts is nice because it retains the look of all the out-of-the-box reports, but sometimes that's the problem, that you actually need to do something that HiCharts doesn't do, and then you can use something else. In the service portal, you can use your own JavaScript and CSS, so a lot of flexibility is there. And the question is, what is HiCharts? HiCharts is a third-party library that actually does the visualizations on the client side for us. There is a lot of documentation. There are things that, if you're doing custom visualizations, there's a lot that can be done there. We do a session in CreatorCon at Knowledge. We've done it the last 2 years on creating custom visualizations, and we talk a little bit more about HiCharts. But that is what we use. And if you use HiCharts for a custom visualization in the service portal or on a dashboard in custom visualization, it's nice because it will then look like everything else. Okay, next question. So what is the best way to report on multiple metrics in a single report? An example being incident state with pending reason, assignment group putting incident into pending. I'm not sure with that example with text, it gets to be a bit challenging. And when we're talking about metrics, you do have multiple data sets that you can put in if you're graphing numbers, and PA also supports multiple indicators at the same time. So my general answer would be I would use in a report multiple data sets, and PA multiple indicators, and increasing my data density is something that's generally good. It can be an overboard, but it can be really powerful to see correspond or contradictory metrics, to see what's good and what's bad, and make sure everything is going well. And then the other approach that I think might actually be simpler is that on a dashboard, make sure you put the complementary reports together, right? That's the point of a dashboard. Why we've moved to dashboard a few years ago, then we're moved to dashboards, is that one report doesn't tell the full story, but I'm hoping that a tab of a dashboard with 2 or 3 or 4 reports will tell a more complete story. We are going to be talking about multiple data sets in a couple of office hours from now. I know before now and the end of the year, we will do a demo on using multiple data sets and reports. And there are docs and a lot of stuff on the community if you want to look at before then. I see another question about HiCharts, and is it included in ServiceNow? The library is included in ServiceNow, so you can call it. As far as a demo in office hours, I don't know that it's going to be a great fit for office hours, because the session at we run at Knowledge is 100 minutes, and that's pretty fast to go through it. There's a lot to it, but we can see if we can do a quick demo. I highly recommend, if you have anybody, if you went to Knowledge or anybody else went to, or anybody in your org went to Knowledge, go look in the community, the presentation on custom interactive filters and custom visualizations, and we walk through it. There are a lot of caveats about it. You're taking a big chunk of code that you're going to maintain, and you're going to have to worry about upgrades. So I do discourage custom visualizations, but again, if that's the last thing you need to do, then it is certainly possible. So that's there. So there's a question about swim lanes and virtual visual task boards. Visual task boards are all based on the records that are there. So there should be no reason why you can't build a report that visualizes the data that's in the visual task boards. I don't know if there's more to that, if there was a challenge that you had, but that data is all there. It is one visualization, and you certainly could do everything that's in there. There's nothing that's you're seeing in the visual task board that's not effectively a choice list in the record.
Hi, I made a mistake and like put both of my questions in the
Okay.
same thing. But yeah, the visual task board, my manager just asked me, she was showing me the pending column, and could that be put into a PA widget some kind of way?
Yeah. I mean, pending is you have it's just a column you labeled pending. It's not the state.
Yeah.
I'll have to look. I'm sure you can. How easy it is a good question. If you can post that to the community, I will try to get an answer in the next week on how
Okay.
you can do it. I'll point you in the right direction. That metadata does exist somewhere. So I'm not sure I'd recommend doing it as opposed to having a state of pending. But that you have to decide that based on. Let me show you how you can do it, and then you can decide if that's the best fit for you.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. And then my other question about a report model.
So better manage. So I don't particularly like naming conventions like that. So the question is, can I create a report model so that people can standardize what's going on? We just published a couple of weeks ago some best practices for reporting. I would take a look at that and guide people down that way. It is we're working on some better material on recommended governance. We'll probably talk about that early next year in the office hours. But there's probably gonna be some other webinars on it because it can be a bigger topic. I will just say start with the best practices. If you search the community for reporting best practices, you'll see it. Add some comments there. We certainly can talk more about it, but I would read that first and then go.
Okay. And you were saying you didn't really like naming conventions.
So naming conventions in reporting, it's okay if it's a prefix. It's okay if it's in the name. But you want to have really meaningful report
Right.
names. What I want to see is this persona. It's a crossover between reporting and dashboarding. But generally what I want to see in a name is this role will use this to accomplish this task. I explain that a little bit more, but frontline work, incident manager, daily operations or something that's going to tell me I want to look at this because I want to do this.
Right.
Okay. And if it's a coded naming convention, that doesn't tell me anything. I mean, HR is nice, but take a look at that. And a lot of what we let people do, I hate naming conventions in general because people are going to duplicate a report, and now I have two 101. I have 102 and 102 copy.
Right.
So there's a lot of what we go for is create some guidelines and some rules, create some reports to audit that, and then let people go. And as long as you stay within the guidelines, you can do whatever you want.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Is there a way to drop a visual task board into a dashboard? Stefan, I believe you're on the phone and you can correct me, but I believe not, or not in a way that would really be recommended.
Correct. So you can do it indeed, as was pointed out in the comments, using an iframe. However, you will probably run into issues with large scroll bars on each side, and that can cause a usability issue for your end users. Also, performance-wise, you might feel a hit when you try to load the dashboard.
Sorry, I'm reading through Frederick's question. I need to look at that some more. I think that has to, there's a question about PA, I think it's job scheduling is really where the question comes into. Yeah, so Frederick, if you want to post that, maybe we might have time to come back. Let me jump in. If you want to post it in the community, we can walk through a little bit more. And if we have time, I'll come back to it. But I need to think about what the indicators are that you have in the scheduling. Governance best practices. Okay. So I talked about the best practices. I'm going to go to the community. We had it featured for a while, but it might have dropped off.
Adam, I posted the link down a few columns below. I think that's the correct one, 5 days ago.
I'm going to open it up. Yeah, this is the one. Thank you. So here there's a lot of general information that are things to think about and to go through. And I will put this again because it is just very important. Before you build anything, go look through the content packs and look what's out there. Eric, I think 2 weeks ago, walked through what's new in New York. And there's a ton of stuff that's new in New York. There was a ton of new stuff in Madrid. With the store release, things are coming out even more often than per release, but per release is everything is big. There is some amazingly great, helpful content for you. Take a look at what's there. It might just answer the question. It might answer the next question as well. And if not, it might get you 70, 80% of where you want to go. So make sure you look at the content packs. Then if you are going to build, take a look at the best practices. There's a lot of things out here that we've collected to help you think about it. Share this with your users as well so they understand kind of what we're trying to get to. Okay. So I think as I'm coming in, there's a question about visualizations. I think the most important thing we look at in terms of visualizations is you want to keep your data in ServiceNow. Exporting out always just has lots of pressure. We are updating visualizations. You'll see that as releases come up. We're aware that people like things that look nice. So that's being worked on. There are other options as well. Actually, I'll just say the other ones. Even if you look in the store, one of the ones I've seen recently, HiCharts, does some really nice looking stuff, and the data stays in platform. I'd love it for you to use our stuff and it to meet your needs. Again, the service portal helps with that as well. But if it's not, then take a look at your options. The thing I just discourage the most is exporting your data out because it's headaches and lots of effort if you're trying to export everything out of the platform. Then there is the next question that I'll get to is, can I run a report that shows view count of KB article for more than 30 days? So I believe you're looking at KB use for this. You can correct me if I'm wrong. If that's purging at 30 days, that's a setting that you have. I don't think it's has to. I don't think 30 days is bad, but if you needed it to be 60 or 90, that's probably okay to set it up to that, to not purge after that. Or adjust when the purge happens. The other thing we'll look at, and I thought there was a total views as well, but if you are purging after 30 days, you could lengthen that. And you can also look at setting up PA. In terms of KB, if you have 10,000 KB articles, then that wouldn't be ideal. You'd really want to keep it somehow. But if you are if you have 1,000 KB articles, you could do a breakdown by KB and really track that. That would be fine. Alternatively, the KB use can be a large table depending on the size of your organization. The other thing I might look at is just writing a job that's scheduled that does store it. That stores it and summarizes it monthly, maybe drops the usernames off. it depends on the volume of data you have in KB use as to what you can do. But my first take would be to just increase that from 30 days to 60 days. You don't want it unlimited because you want it to roll off. And if you're having millions of KB views every month, good for you. And then you'd still need to manage it. But I would look at extending that to 60 days or 90 days and see if that gives you that. Hopefully that helps. And there was the comment that you can change the property to 0 instead of 30. I don't know what that property is. I'm sure that exists. So I would look it up in the docs or post that in one of the community posts. And I'm sure somebody can help point you in the right direction for what property that is to change. Okay, and then there a comment about additional filters. For us today, we certainly do break off. If you need to have tons of different filters, then interactive filters and reporting is the way to go. General like performance analytics is geared towards KPIs and things that you set targets for, not just the trending. And with that, when you start breaking down into too small of categories, you don't set KPIs. So that's in the general guideline. That's not to say your users are wrong at all. You certainly do want to slice and dice. It is something that we're working on. We certainly get that request. But for today and in New York, we recommend performance analytics when it's things that you're setting targets for and you really want to manage your performance. Otherwise, if you need to have 5 levels of filtering, then reporting is the way we want to go. I've seen recently too that reporting people stay away from because of performance. If that's always something you want to look at to be aware of performance, but a lot of things, if you're designing your reports correctly, if you're taking advantage of the indexes that are there, and if you're putting in indexes that you need, you can still get very good performance out of reporting. You're just looking at today's data as it is today, whereas PA will let you keep that snapshotted data to help you understand trending over time for things that have changed. Okay. Any other questions about the topics we've had? I know we're wrapping up in time anyway. I always get the nice big questions at the end. Okay, a couple comments that came in that I'll try to respond to about tracking report and widget use. There's limited ability in that. You can certainly see things that aren't used. If you look at report stats, executions, and report stats, you'll be able to see what gets used and what doesn't get used. It doesn't track who's viewing it, but it will show you that things are being used and give you an idea of how often they're being used. So look for report stats and widget stats in the nav bar, and you should see them, and you should see the last use and some really useful information.
Does it show where they're used, Adam?
No, if you want to see where they're used, you would need to use the dependency assessment.
Okay, that's just pretty laborious. You have to go through one at a time.
Yes.
But okay.
There is on my list to do. There is an API that uses that you can script around that does it. There's not a report today that tells you all of that stuff. I hopefully by the end of the year I'll have something that helps you that uses that API to get through it. It's really challenging if you want to report on it because reports are simple. They're added to the dashboard, but once you get into PA and a widget and supporting widgets and formula widgets that can be on formula widgets, that dependency assessment really helps you understand how it's being used. But hopefully we can leverage that API to give you a little bit more standard report. There was a question quickly about calculate 2 fields in reporting. Kind of. Depends what you're trying to do.
Hey, Adam, this is Shawana.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I tried to get it in there before it was too late. But I was asked if I can create a report where the due date is less than the close date.
Yes. Yeah, sure. So there's a relative operator. I think it's relative operator. There's two operators, and I'm just to tell you where to look. There's more than and less than as an operator, and relative. I think they're different. And one of them is a constant. The other is comparing two fields. So you can say where the close date is less than 1 day after the open date. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, that just look in the condition builder. So just
Okay.
on the date field, you select the first date field where you have on, more than, less than. Look for relative or more than. It's one of those two.
Okay.
Less than.
All right, great. Thank you.
I think relative is the right one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, better documentation. A comment about better documentation. If you haven't gone through and looked at it, we did a pretty big revision of the documentation in New York, and we're actively working on that for Orlando as well. There is a lot better documentation. I think today it's structured a little bit differently. If you go look at Madrid documentation, if you go look at London documentation, we didn't change that. We generally don't go back and change the old documentation to make sure that it's still right. But the structure in New York has been revised, and we are certainly looking to put more use cases for why you would use these features in there. That's true for performance analytics and reporting. It's also true for all of ServiceNow. The documentation is being updated to give you more use cases and explain why you would do things. Today, you'll see some of that augmented with the community, but I think you'll be very happy with what's coming forward in documentation, and it's starting with New York. So take a look there for what you're looking for. And
yeah, use cases and examples are so valuable.
Yes, absolutely. And even if you're on Madrid, I would start looking at the documentation for New York and then just check and make sure that that functionality is still in Madrid. But the documentation is just simply worded better and structured more meaningfully in New York. Okay, and we have the property for knowledge. Thank you, Isaac. There's Tom's going to cut me off pretty soon. There's
Go for it.
Question about dashboard usage. Dashboard usage logs the users, but widget usage and reporting usage does not. So we can't get the same level of detail about who's using the widget. But since you can only use a widget on a dashboard, that's why I'm okay with know what's on the dashboard and look at the widgets. And again, we'll try and get some better impact analysis of what's going on. And Stefan, I hope is hearing that. Aggregate counter. In the knowledge base settings, we found that good.
There is I believe there is instrumentation coming for usage. I don't know which release it's to be in though.
Okay, and I will. Good, got that answered. I will summarize one thing. Some of the question or comments you guys have about more flexibility with PA, the difference between PA and reporting, documentation, visualizations. These are actually pretty much our top things that we're being worked on. So hopefully you see some improvements in New York. You'll continue to see them. We absolutely hear everything you guys are saying, and are pushing. We're developing in that direction to address those things. Can't promise when they'll be done. But that is what we're trying to get. There's a lot of tough problems to solve to make sure that it works for all of your use cases. But we certainly hear you and are working in those directions. All right, Tom, all yours.
All right. Yep. I think we're going to have to wrap up here. So thank you everyone for your participation and your feedback on things you'd like to see and what you'd like to see us improve. So keep that coming. We'll meet again in 2 weeks. And I'll try and get this recording up as soon as possible. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.